What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Diesel Creek. My name's Matt. This orange beauty right here is my 1980 Autocar Constructor. Now, if you haven't seen the previous videos on this unit, well, you're really missing out. You need to go back and watch those. I'll link a playlist down in the description to, I think, probably the videos of this truck. If you haven't seen it before, the long and skinny of the process is here. I bought this truck. I want to use it to pull a lowboy trailer to haul around some of my bigger equipment, but the hang up is the Cummins under the hood there is a little gutless, and by a little, I mean a lot. It's rated at 230 horsepower, and trucks on the road today are pushing 4, 5, and in some cases even 600 plus horsepower. So this thing is just absolutely blown out of the water by everything passing you like you're standing still. It'll do it. It has the gearing to move a mountain, but you're only going to do it at about 25 miles an hour. So the big process is here, I want to bring this thing into the shop. We're going to yank out that old power plant, the small cam Cummins, and I am tearing down and rebuilding a big cam Cummins, which is just a newer, higher horsepower version of the same engine. Once that engine is rebuilt, I also have a 13-speed transmission to put behind the new engine. The one that's in there is some sort of a goofy 7-speed, I think they call it. It's not geared very well for what we're trying to do with this truck now. So in the previous video, when I pulled the truck into the shop here, we really didn't do anything to the truck itself. I kind of opened up the hood there and talked a little bit about it. But in this video, we're actually going to start tearing into her. That engine is going to come out of there by the end of this video. So I kind of came up with a plan of attack here. I think the first thing we need to do is knock off this big giant bumper. And somebody in the last video was saying I should get rid of this big, heavy, ugly bumper. That big, heavy, ugly bumper is the whole reason I bought the truck. Look how cool that thing is. I know it's not really exactly practical, but man, it turns some heads going down the road. You don't really have to worry too much if you get into an accident with anything smaller than you. You're gonna win. Look, at the end of the day, we're not actually taking this truck, driving it cross country, trying to make a buck with it. This is kind of an overgrown toy, really, and it's only justifiable to own it because I can say that I can haul my equipment with it. It does serve that purpose. How much it'll actually see the road in a year? Probably less than 200 miles a year is what I would say. Still, even for any of those miles, we need to do it safely. So in addition to the engine and the transmission upgrade, we've got to do things like replace all the tires. We have another axle seal that's leaking. We have some pinion input seals that are leaking. And I'm sure we're going to uncover a myriad of other issues as we dive in. Let's do just that. Let's dive into this thing. Well, I didn't think I had that much pressure on it. Woo! That was a chunk of coal in the way down there. Can tell where this truck's been at. Of course, it's the last bolt that has to round off the fight truck. Just when you've got a 1,000-pound bumper hanging over your head. There we go. It's free, it's just wedged on there now. The forklift just came off the ground. All right, well, I'm an idiot. I swore I checked this thing twice for missing bolts. But there's one. I didn't get that one. Can't figure out why it won't come out. Paying my stupid tax yet again. Hey, look at that. Hey, look at that. Get it. There we go, baby. My goodness, that was a struggle that didn't need to be if I would have just looked better. Like I said, I checked twice to make sure I had all the bolts out, and apparently still missed one. I like my little chain thing I had going on there, though. That actually worked out really good to be able to pull and support at the same time. That bumper's nice and solid on there. It didn't even waver a bit. I like it. These shim plates are why it was tight to wiggle on there. And you can see I was spraying a bunch of blaster down in those layers trying to get it separated. That was fun. The poor truck looks naked without that big thing hanging up front, though. Ugh, that was an ordeal, though. Time for lunch. Okay, back from lunch. Got our mess cleaned up here. I'm gonna go ahead and get that radiator draining out, and while we're letting that drain, I can be up top on here trying to get that hood off. So So this thing has like some fabricated coolant hard lines down here. And as you can see, they're old and rusted and everything. And while I was working on this the other day, I'm pretty sure I noticed that it's leaking. Now, whether it's leaking out of a pinhole or it's maybe just this fitting and it's weeping up that way, I'm not sure. But there's a chance that we're going to have to replace these things. I give it credit, the fitting's coming right out. Oh yeah. That's got some pressure in it. I have the cap off too. So we're undoing bolts in this bottom radiator tank here. And we really need to be careful because this is a cast aluminum bottom tank and of course steel bolts. And if you're not in the know, there's a thing called iron and aluminum oxidation. Anytime you have anything that's steel meeting aluminum, they can tend to get pretty stuck. So I'm just wiggling them back and forth here real nice and easy before we try to really rally them out of there. Make sure they're good and broke loose first. Luckily enough, they both seem to be coming loose pretty easy. Alright, the radiator off there, we can finally see the Cummins within. I'm debating on whether I should take the fenders off to pull the engine or if I'll just fight with them on there. You know, you struggle a little bit for reaching some of the stuff you got to disconnect, or you struggle a little bit unbolting the fenders, you know. I guess the only plus side I can see to unbolting the fenders is that we'll be able to do a better job cleaning the truck before paint and everything, and then we could probably paint the fenders and everything separately. So I guess I just answered my own question. I guess we're unbolting the fenders. All right, we got some sweet progress, huh? Those fenders were an absolute bear. I'm not going to lie about that. Those sucked. But they're off there. I'm glad we took the fenders off because there's plenty of things on there that we need to fix up a bit before they are ready for paint, and much easier to do off the truck than on. Not only that, it's going to make disconnecting everything and unbolting everything on this engine much easier. So glad we did the fenders, even though it was a pain. It's going to probably save effort in the long run. I guess it's time to yank that engine. Well, that sucked a lot. So this is the PTO. I was originally going to separate the engine and transmission and pull them out one at a time, but I decided that it was going to be easier, and I still think it is easier, pull them as a unit after some convincing from my buddy Sam. The only hiccup with that plan was that I had to remove that PTO so that we would clear this hoop cross member thing they got going on down here. And that was proving to be quite a pain. All the threads were really jammed up with gunk and grease and, you know, hardened crud from 30, 40 years of being on there. And you couldn't get any kind of tool on them other than an open end wrench. So I had to take off, what is that, 2, 4, 6, 8 bolts with an open end wrench, and there's just no clearance in there to swing them or anything. It was a very slow, tedious process. That took me probably an hour just to get those 8 bolts undone and drop that PTO down off there. Maybe a little over an hour. Of course, I didn't time lapse everything. It's really hard to see underneath here with the camera, and plus the camera's in the way while I'm trying to work. But taking this drive shaft yoke apart, that took quite a while. Well, that was probably an hour and a half there. And again, space limitations and, you know, parts that have probably never been apart. I imagine that's probably the original drive shaft yoke, or U-joint rather. So these things don't like to come apart, so it took a lot of persuasion. But all that being said, I think the time has finally come to give a strength test to everything that we forgot to disconnect. Yes, that's right, it's time to finally yank the engine and transmission. I was able to get the rear engine mounts undone. There's 2 bolts on each side. These front ones I could not get to come loose. So there's these 2 here, the rubber isolator, which bolt to this plate, and then this plate is bolted down to this cross member. So I just ended up torching these 2 bolts that hold the plate on, and I checked it already with a bar. It is free. So we should be clear to lift it out of there. And like I said, we're just gonna find out if we forgot to disconnect anything, I guess. That drive shaft U-joint is something that I know is kind of sort of still connected, but I can't get it undone until I take the engine forward about a ½ inch or so. So I'm gonna have to pick it, pull it, fiddle with the drive shaft, and then hopefully it pops out, and then I can finish yanking the engine. Well, it's the next day, and I'm just doing my final checks here, and for what it's worth, I think we have everything disconnected. I got the shifter off of there. I got everything disconnected off the side of the transmission for the clutch and whatnot. I think she's ready to pull. So let's fire up the old engine puller. All right, here it goes. I gotta start lifting it and take it forward just a little bit, and then I gotta get underneath the truck and make sure the U-joint pops out. Well, we're getting there. We got it lifted out and forward. We're up against that cross member right now, so I need to take it back a little bit, but while I have some of that forward tension on it, I need to separate this exhaust. I have this band clamp was around this turbo flange here, but it's still like glued on there with soot or whatnot, so I'm gonna try to break that loose here while it's kind of under more tension. Looks like we're just gonna end up destroying our turbo flange. Kind of saw that coming. Holy crap, that thing is on there. There we go. Well, that was holding some tension. Well, I think that you probably could get the angles right and fish it out of there, especially if I had an extra set of eyes here, but to make life a lot easier, it looks like I could just pull out this cross member and be able to bring that engine transmission group straight forward. That'll make life a lot easier, especially being by myself here. That ought to make life easier. Well, I definitely have it started on its way out. I was able to finally sneak that front end up and over the cross member. I had to put a jack underneath the transmission to get it to slide back again. It was kind of wedged. But the issue I'm having now is the way this stupid coupler is designed. The only lifting hole was dead center there, and this is why we're replacing this coupler. Basically, that lifting eye, if it was 90 degrees, would be a lot better. The way the rigging's all hanging right now, under load, these chains are wanting to spin. So basically when I have the engine picked up, it wants to spin the engine 90 degrees. So all we have to do to fix that is, well, we could either put a swivel hook in there, which wouldn't be a terrible idea, but it's gonna make the setup a lot longer if I do that. So what I'm gonna do is just put another shackle between the two, and that'll get me the correct alignment for those chains to be happy. Well, we're finding the first thing that we missed here. I don't know if you guys can see it very well, but there is a bunch of battery leads down there that have a metal band bolting them to the bell housing there. So got to figure out a way to either bust that thing off there or loosen the nut, both of which seem rather difficult. Not a lot of space in there, and I sure don't want to get under it right now. Okay, I got those leads disconnected. I found another hose that was running up on the backside of the air compressor that was disconnected but just wedged and wouldn't pull through. And I re-shimmed the chains just a little bit, so I think that's the 5th or 6th time now. Hopefully, we can get this thing out now. All right, so you guys, look at how much crud is jammed into this frame rail. Now let's not forget, this truck spent its entire working career in a strip mine, so it saw nothing but muddy, slurry, rocky, nasty roads its whole life. It was never on hardtop, as far as I know. The only registration that this truck ever shows is the year it was delivered. That's 1980. It was never on the road again until I put it there last year. So with the amount of crud that is just jammed into every little nook and cranny that you're never going to have access to again, I want to make sure that we get this thing spick and span before we stick an engine back in it, and that'll also help us before giving it a paint job. It'll be nice and clean, a lot easier to prep for paint without all that junk there. This ugly battery box on the side here has definitely seen better days. It is rotted, bent, mangled, and it is harboring a lot of that same slurry rock mud material behind it, between the frame rail and the battery box. The same with the fuel tank over here. So I figure we'll just go ahead and knock those off. They need to be taken off for paint anyhow. That fuel tank is going to get painted independently, and we want to be able to get paint up underneath the cab and behind that fuel tank and everything anyways. So we'll just go ahead and zap that off of there. And also, while it's off there, I need to straighten this step. It's all bent and mangled. So we'll get those zapped off of there, and then this thing is going to be ready for the next step in this little light restoration process. I don't know what level of care you would call this a job. It's not going to be a restoration. I don't really like to say that word because I'm not going all out. We're not going to spend $20 million on a beautiful paint job. It's not going to look like a museum piece when it's done. This is going to be a work truck at the end of the day. But I do want it to look presentable, because if it looks good, it is good. And that saying goes a long way in the eyes of a DOT officer or whoever. You know, if your truck looks like a piece of crap going down the road, well, they're gonna pay some attention to you. But if it looks just like a nice old rig cruising on through, they probably, hopefully, won't really pay too much attention. And it's not that we're trying to get away with something. It's just that we don't want to be hassled unnecessarily. The other thing I'm kind of on the fence about at this point is this winch. Now, the winch itself is not going anywhere. I love having the winch on there, and it's going to be super handy for recovery in the future. But what drives the winch is really what's concerning me. It was a mechanical setup before. There was that big, huge PTO that we just had to remove from the transmission, and that ran a drive shaft up to this little bearing gearbox thing, which ran a chain up. So that ran a roller chain up to a counter shaft down there, which in turn run another double roller chain up here to the winch. And you had mechanical lever controls on the floor in the cab. And you know, that setup is very robust, but it's also extremely heavy on a truck that is already super heavy. Now, it's a heavy spec truck, so you're not going to get away from some of that weight. You know, we got a 1,200 pound bumper hanging out there on the front of the truck. But I am considering removing the mechanical drive stuff from the winch and converting it to hydraulic drive, because we're going to put a wet line kit on this truck anyway. So we're already going to have a hydraulic pump and components to run a hydraulic line for the lowboy and a dump trailer. Why not make that winch hydraulic control? We're going to save a couple 100 pounds of weight, and really you'll end up having better control of that winch anyhow. It's a worm drive winch, so we shouldn't really need to worry about any kind of brake, and I think that that's going to be the way to go. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. I would have to do some calculations, which I don't know how to do, about what size of motor I would need to drive this winch, and have to figure out the spools and whatnot to figure out how to do that. So all that being said, we're going to leave the winch component stuff for now, that big C-channel cross member and all the chain drive stuff. We're going to leave that on there for right now. It's not really in the way yet, but it would be nice to strip that off there and save some weight. Not to mention, as I have in previous videos, it's bent. If you look at that C-channel coming down from the frame, it's not 90 degrees to the frame. It looks like somebody backed into something with it and shoved it forward, which messed up the drive shaft too. That's why the drive line was not connected to that thing. First things first, let's get my sophisticated battery hold down strap. We'll get this out of the way. I'll tell you what, it was effective, because I can't get it out and I'm trying. Good gravy, this thing's on here. Ow! These are 8D batteries. I don't know exactly what they weigh, but they got to be pushing 150 pounds a piece. They are not light. Anyway, we're going to pull these things out, and I'm going to go put them on the tender, and then after they're on the charge for a while, I'm going to load test them, make sure they're still good before I go putting them back in the truck. Ugh. So heavy. I don't know why they did this like this, and maybe some of you will have the answer. They ran 2 complete battery leads from the batteries all the way up to the starter. So you've got 4 complete leads rather than just 2, because you can wire those batteries together right here in the box and then just send one set of leads up to the motor. I don't know why they did that. So if you do, let me know down on the doodly-doo. All right, the remaining bolts, I'm just gonna torch off. I mean, I got these 4 down here. There's 2 here and 2 over here. And I can just tell by looking at those, there's no way those are coming off of there. You're just gonna be, they're just gonna be liquid, and then they won't be a factor. Something happened. There we go. Holy crap. Look at the chunk of mud up against the frame rail. Would you just look at it? That is a lot of crustiness. pounds to the scrap dumpster. All right, to pull the fuel tank, what we need to do is disconnect our fuel line. So this should be your feed line here, and then there's a return line up here on top of the tank. But of course, I can't get in there the way this is. This panel's made to be removed, and you could probably get in there to it. I'd really rather not try to remove that right now, though we may end up having to just for painting purposes. So I've already went ahead and shut this valve. We should be able to break this fitting loose and not lose any fuel. Should. All right, not too bad at all. Doesn't look like our tank's leaking from the valve, that's good. Oh yeah, the old Milwaukee putting in the work. That thing is smoking. Oh yeah. Uh-huh. Ooh-wee. Man, I don't know whether to smile at the progress or cry at the sad state of this truck. But I gotta know that it's not gonna be like this for long. I'm really getting after it now. I got the ball rolling on this. It's one of those big projects where you're just like, I hate to dive into this thing. Boy, we are in it now. We are committed. We dove in head first, we broke the ice, and we're into this project. The fuel tank brackets are actually in pretty good shape. That tank is dated 97, so it's not the original fuel tank. Been replaced at some point. Somebody probably smashed it if I had to guess. A couple people told me the engine was not original to this truck, and to that I say poo-poo. You can see the original overspray paint job that they did. It was not a high-end body shop paint job by any stretch, which that's okay. We're not going to give it one of those either. But somewhere there's a date. There it is. So that says PH1. I don't know what that stands for, but 1/19 of 90. Excuse me. That says PH1. I don't know what that means, but this is stamped in there 1/19 of 80. So that's the original engine as far as I'm concerned. I don't see any reason they would have changed it. Not for as low a miles or on the whole truck. It's in pretty good shape. Well, guys, I guess I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up here. Believe it or not, you guys do a whole lot to keep me motivated on or off of certain projects. After reading the comments and seeing, got to be hundreds, if not thousands of comments of people telling me that I really needed to get onto the Autocars, we're on to them, okay? So you guys have more input and pull with things than you might think. So if you guys like and appreciate seeing work on the Autocar and you would like to continue to see a lot more, you got to do me a favor. You got to go hit that thumbs up button on the video. It only takes a split second. You don't have to do anything. It doesn't cost you any money, but it does really help out the channel as well as keep me motivated to keep working on stuff like this. And the other thing you can do for me is drop a comment. Tell me what you want to see. Tell me what you like and don't like about my plans with the truck. Tell me what you might do differently, and you never know, I might like your idea better than I like mine. So drop a comment down below. That'd help me out. The last thing you guys can do for me, if you would like to help support the channel in a little more direct fashion, is head on over to dieselcreek.com. The link is down in the description as always. We've got new hoodies in the store over there, but we're coming into springtime. We're gonna be working on some new t-shirts. Of course, we've already got your trucker hats, sticker packs, beer koozies, the whole 9 yards over at the store. That's dieselcreek.com. Link is always down in the description. So if you guys want some merch, head over there. I'd appreciate it. That's it for now. Make sure you guys are staying tuned. I see a lot of comments of people saying that YouTube automatically unsubscribed them for some reason. So if you guys haven't been seeing a lot of regular uploads from me, maybe check the little box down below. Make sure you're still subscribed to the channel because I've been getting that comment a whole lot more than I would like to see. But yeah, that's all I got for now. So as always, thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you on the next one. There's so much room in here for activities.